has a cough, so she can't go to school. So
Oh, yeah.
we're home. So I don't know if any of you got a chance to look at what I sent. I try to kind of give us an idea of where we're at with our goals that we set for this year. I know we talked about housing last time, but I felt like we shouldn't talk about it this time. We hadn't really pulled together any solid plans. So since we're nearing the end of the year, I thought it would be good for us to take stock of where we're at so we can start thinking about what the goals will be for next year, since everything looks so much different now than it did this time last year. I do want to say that I'm not ignoring the affordable housing. I just feel like we've had this conversation a few times, and until we can come up with some action steps about it or a plan, that we need to put it off for another meeting, at least for right now. So if everyone agrees, I want to jump right into the goals. I have them up in front of me. I can share the screen, I think.
If not, I've got them too, Sarah. Hey, the one thing I just want to, before you jump into the goals, and yes, we need to talk about the goals, but Eric and I had a conversation, and I think we're going to need the CIC to help bring home the comp plan update.
Yeah.
And I know that there was a different project team for that. You'll probably talk about that, but I think that that's probably going to need to be kind of a focus for the rest of this year as we finish that up too.
Okay.
Can you share, or do you need me to do it?
Yeah, I think I can. No.
Not if you're not a host.
I can't, but if.
I'll take care of it. Hang on a second.
Okay. Yeah, not to jump way ahead, but I did want to figure out if maybe our next meeting should be all about the comp plan, since Eric has that draft,
Yeah.
ready for us to look at. Eric, would that timing work for you if we looked at it at the next meeting?
On the 20th? Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. You've got a meeting tonight, right? Yes.
Okay.
Sarah,
Yeah.
that's also the form-based code meeting at 10:30. Will we have enough time to do the comp plan?
Well, I don't think we'd have enough time to go through the whole thing anyway, but
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we should not talk about it just because we can't finish the topic.
Yeah, okay.
I think it'll be a multi-meeting conversation. Let me see if I can get this shared. Okay. Is everybody seeing my screen?
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Is that big?
If you get a full screen, that would help.
Whoops. All right. So this is the document I sent on Friday that has what we set as our goals for 2020 late last year. I just went through everything the other day to just kind of think about what we've done, what we haven't done, to help us try and figure out what to do, what to focus on for next year. So, and under, I'll just kind of, I'm not going to read everything, but we had, let's see, we had 6 of our own goals, and then typically lately we've thrown in the final goal of supporting the other committees. our goals were, the first one was natural resource protection, and underneath that fell the NRI, the protection of Canandaigua Lake.
I have some comments about that, about the next steps, if you want to take it that way, or are you just reviewing the whole document and then we'll go back, or just to let you know?
I just want to list them real quick, just to kind of remind
Okay.
everybody of what we did. Mixed-use overlay was priority 2, but we took that to mean the implementation of the Uptown study and the form-based code this year, which is what the Economic Development Committee took on. 3 was conservation easements. That was one of the ones where we started the new project team. 4 was the comprehensive plan. 5 was affordable housing. 6 was gateway signage, again, one of the new project teams. As we know, gateway signage had to stop. That's one of the ones maybe we might want to revisit next year. Affordable housing, we've talked about it, but again, I'm not sure that's a goal that we actually accomplished, at least not a tangible thing. Comp plan, that one was continued. I think we'll be able to say we can wrap that up this year. Again, the easements, that one obviously had to pause for a while, but it has picked back up with the conservation subdivision work that we're doing with Labella. The form-based code has been moving right along with a little bit of a delay due to COVID, but I think we have a draft almost ready with that one. And then the NRI. I don't know how everybody wants to do this. We can just kind of walk through them, or if anyone else has a different suggestion. Sorry, I can't, you've all disappeared. I'm trying to figure out how to get you back. There we go. So Joyce, yeah, if you want to talk about the NRI with me, you've been involved with it probably a little more than I have. This one was a continuation from last year also, but as you all may have noticed, we're about ready to wrap it up. It will be going back to the town board for public hearing, I think in November. We need to provide a way for it to be recognized in town code, because currently the town code references the old one. So we have to add that new reference in there to the new one, and then ask the town board to consider adoption. Joyce, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do. One of the indications in the NRI in the introductions, and this is on page 4 of that, indicates that there are 4 priority updates that need to be done with the NRI as we progress, you know. And so I don't know, you probably can't bring it up, but I just will recap it very quickly. It talks about the use of NRI in project review, and then it states 4 different categories of priorities for these updates. And the updates have to do with the kinds of information that goes into the review for either the ECB or the planning board. So these are strategies that would bring the information in the NRI up to date. So there are areas that is not quite up to date yet. Some is in our control and some of this isn't, because it has to do with Encore and the county and things like that. But anyway, one of the first ones is to update the land cover mapping. And this was the mapping was completed in 2002, but there needs to be an update. And then there was the agriculture enhancement plan. But some of the land cover types, okay, have changed due to succession of the forests and things like that. So that was one of them. The other one was to investigate our wildlife corridors. We don't have a good sense in the NRI what kind of wildlife is in our corridors and where it may be located within the town, so that would need update. And the other one is to identify locations of abandoned wells. This is a pretty straightforward thing that we can work out with soil and water, but the wells on farmland is an issue of contamination in the groundwater. So that was one of the areas that the NRI felt that we should be more aware of. And then the update of the scenic views. There's 32 scenic views prioritized in the NRI. However, that prioritization took place in 2004. And there's a document that's called Prioritizing Scenic Views. And that was in 2005 and 2004 and 2006 when it was ratified. So those have changed because of tree growth and for different reasons. And so that all needs to be verified probably again, bringing the NRI inventory up to it always has to be updated because things change in the natural resource environment in our town. So my question about that is, there is no indication in the NRI whose responsibility it would be to undertake these projects. So I bring it to the CIC. Is this a CIC project that would be handled through us, or would it be an ECB responsibility? In the open space master plan, there was developed what we call our implementation table, and this implementation table stated there were different objectives, different goals, and it stated who was the responsible party, and then there was, on a yearly basis, the ECB, when we have an area of our responsibility, we indicate whether we've done anything with it or not. So this, I think, is the same kind of thing. So I'm just wondering what the CIC wants to do with this particular issue of implementing the strategies as mentioned in the NRI.
And I know what you're talking about. I remember reading through that section, but I'm not sure. So like I thought of the inventory as just that, an inventory and a way to use it to help review projects. I didn't think of it more as a plan where we needed to do stuff like that. Maybe we can reconsider how it was intended and look at that. The other thing is a lot of those are beyond the scope of the town, like that mapping that they did at FLCC all those years ago. Was it, I can't remember, was it countywide?
Well, this is not past our responsibility to do. All of these things are something that the town can do. I'm just saying, who wants to do it? Does the CIC want to put it on their list of things to do, or do we want to give it to the ECB? The ECB could do every single one of these things. Sure, we'd have to work with Ontario County and the Sherry to implement some of these things. We'd have to work with FLCC. Bruce Gilman did the first one. Maybe they would be willing to do that. It's just a matter of getting the people together and seeing where we can go with it. We can't not update these things is what I'm saying.
I agree. I think it should be updated, but I don't think it should be falling on town's shoulders alone. I think that if it was a countywide mapping program before, then maybe it should be again with support from us or,
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we can't do the actual mapping, but we can bring the people together to start talking about it.
Yeah.
This is something that it's not a countywide update that we're talking. When Bruce Gilman did that, he did it I don't know if he did it for the whole county or if he did it just for our town. I have to look into that, but those updates are something that FLCC and Bruce did in cooperation with the county. The reason why the county's involved is because the county is the focus of all of the digital information. So that's, it takes a little bit, but things change in natural resource. Sometimes a natural resource disappears. Sometimes it morphs into something else. And we haven't had this done in a long time. So all I'm saying is, if we don't want to follow through on any of these, fine. That's what the town will do. I'm just bringing it up. It's in the document.
I guess my question or just kind of my thought was, I think it's definitely something that maybe have whether it's a project team or associated with the CIC or report back to the CIC, I guess is kind of what I'm thinking, to explore these 4 areas. I'm sitting here reading it right now. and see what it would take to do these updates. Some of the information, we may have some of the information already. I'm even thinking of the ag plan has some stuff relating to some of the land cover types and everything. So that was done in 2016. So I guess my question is, I think that we need to dig into it a little bit more to see what it would take. And then obviously if there's a financial side of it, that's not something that's budgeted for 2021. So I think, having a project team explore all 4 of these categories and give us more information on what it would take to update these might be a good way to go. And then we can make a decision or recommendation to the town board from the CIC from there.
Any way you want to handle it, it's fine with me.
Karen, you had your hand up to say something.
Well, I kind of say along the same line as Doug. This seems like way too much for our CIC to do by itself, because we have a full range of items on our to-do list. So I was going to suggest either a subcommittee or passing it on to the ECB, because they have a more narrow range of work to do than we do. Not that they don't have a lot to do, but it's narrower than what the CIC covers.
The ECB has already been talking about these updates here. I mean, we talk about this all the time because we're in the process right now of developing our project plan for 2021. And if one of these projects, let's just take a really quick one that we could probably do very easily, and that's identifying locations of abandoned wells. That information is already secured in the Soil and Water District, so it's just a matter of uncovering that information, bringing it out, making it available in our documents for planning, if that's the way that would be. That's not information that is really hard to get. So, we've been talking already about if there's anything here that we could start in 2021. So just throwing out the option that the ECB is willing to do anything that the CIC directs or that the town in its resolution directs.
I think it would not make sense for the ECB not to be heavily involved in this. Anyway, you are the main outreach and education for these topics for the town.
Yeah.
But, to suggest from the CIC that the ECB just take it all seems also, I don't know, maybe it's not unrealistic. What do you think, Joyce?
I don't think it's unrealistic, but I think along with what Karen's saying, we do have other things that we do. I'm not saying that, we would take every single one of these things and be able to implement it next year. That would be
Right.
not, but we would be willing to work on one at the direction of either the CIC or the town. I'm saying that there's an implementation table too that identified in the open space who is responsible. So if the ECB is responsible for one of these or 2 of these or whatever, we would be willing to start working on those, and then and then to implement the other ones as time and money and interest or whatever a commitment occurs. Say the land cover. Okay, that's probably it. That's a big project. That will take, I would imagine, a few years to accomplish, because it's not something that we can do. We'd have to work with someone to do that. I'm talking about FLCC or Bruce or somebody, but I understand that Bruce may be interested in it. So that's the only reason why I'm bringing that one up. So, there's ways to do this. It's just figuring out if you want the ECB to do what, and then we'll do it.
Okay. All right, well, it's 9:25. In an effort of time, I think at this point, I've got it down as definitely something for next year, but the details will need to be worked out. And I don't think we'll get that solved today. Underneath the first priority is also protection of Canandaigua Lake. Last year, we all agreed that, our job with this priority is to share information from the experts, from the Watershed Council, and other groups that are already doing the good work, so to speak. Actually, I think it was last year they started their Lake Friendly Lawn Care Initiative. We've shared information on that every time they have, they or other groups have, webinars about how to take care of your yard without impacting the lake. We share that information. Along those same lines, we've shared information about invasive species. I know the ECB has traditionally done workshops, or we share information from other groups on those workshops, like the recent gypsy moth webinar that DEC had. And as far as water quality and stuff like that, I'm comfortable continuing to do that. And I remember our argument before is, we have a lot of people working in Canandaigua, in the Finger Lakes on water quality. And unless something changes, I think our best job is to promote what they're doing and share it with our residents.
I would have one comment about protection of Canandaigua Lake, and that is, I don't know what is happening right now, but the Watershed Council, planning board members, and I know that town manager used to meet together with the 14 counties or the 14 municipalities around the lake. And they were working on, and they have worked on different issues. And one of the things that about a couple of years ago, they were planning to work on was the shoreline guidelines. And that's why the NRI team never worked on shoreline guidelines. I'm wondering what is the disposition of the Watershed Council and how they are now. I know that they're working on water quality projects for HABs, and they're really doing, tremendous work there. But are there other issues in the municipalities around the lake that we should be talking about, and that the Watershed Council could sponsor some, like guidelines for shoreline code, actually, not guidelines, but code. They never got around to it. It was just.
So if I could, am I muted? No. So I'm on the Watershed Council and I go to the meetings, but I have to say that Kevin Albany is the one with all the knowledge. So I've been thinking about this for a while. I don't know about shoreline guidelines, but I will be looking into that. Most of what's been done in the last year, focusing specifically on, I shouldn't say mostly, a lot of things, but Kevin has been great at getting a lot of grants and doing actual studies of the water and testing. And there are a lot of partners with Watershed Association, et cetera. So we do meet every other month, but obviously that's not for about an hour and a half, usually an hour. It's not enough for me to have an expertise in all that Kevin is doing. So my suggestion would be at some point to invite Kevin, and I'll reach out about shoreline guidelines. I don't, since my time there, I don't know that that's been addressed. The, I can't think of the word. It'll come to me, but so a lot of work is being done. I think reporting back is something that I have to do better. Kevin is so busy. I'm always
I know he is
reluctant to track him down because I know he's just doing it, but I will because it's important. I mean, our minutes don't necessarily reflect all that he's doing. So even on a Zoom meeting like this, I think maybe he could take a couple of minutes. And maybe it's with ECB, Joyce, maybe that's the place for it. But whatever you think, I'd be happy to set it up. And so that you can, if you have more educated, specific questions, I can pass them along or you can ask them yourself.
Kathy, if I could just help out there for a quick second. So Tom and I were actually on a project team. Tom Schwartz and I were on a project team. This goes back, I think, 2015-ish, 14, 15 timeframe. And it was a subgroup that the Watershed Council had created with representatives from all of the municipalities to actually work on some of these things. And one of the, I think there were, they called them the Dirty Seven. There were 7 things that were hurting Canandaigua Lake. And we, like, for instance, that's where the septic law came from. And so we adopted that and a bunch of other, but this one that Joyce is referring to, that was one that we kept saying, we need to go back, we need to go back. and it never got done. So I don't know if maybe that's something you could bring up the Watershed Council to maybe regenerate that task force, figure out who needs to be on it. Certainly not me, but whoever can be on it to make help that process move along. But Joyce, also, and I was going to mention it when Sarah was talking about protection of the lake. The town of Canandaigua has worked with the Watershed Council and Kevin and the city of Canandaigua, and we've done these joint water projects. It's really a three-way partnership between the council, the city of Canandaigua, and town of Canandaigua. And I think for next year, we may actually have another project coming up. He's working on looking into that right now. So that kind of stuff still continues to happen also.
I know.
Like the Finger
I
Lakes.
mentioned that we do actually do work. We're not only promoting. I forget about
Right.
the water projects. They're so big. I don't know how, but
Yeah.
Right, there's a lot of projects going on, like I said, the project at FLCC and making sure the runoff has changed completely since all the work the town has done and the other municipalities over there. And the work that's being done in Naples right now with floodplain protection, and they just put in they're putting in sewers, and so all around the lake a lot of things are going on. So off the top of my head I don't have reports, but there's a lot of things, and as I said, Kevin is running so many things it's hard sometimes for me to pin him down, but I will. And Joyce, I will talk to you about shoreline guidelines so that I ask educated questions about where we go from here, if that's okay with you.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. This year we talked about form-based code that fall under our mixed use overlay priority. Eric, you can help me, but I think they've got that draft finished, right? And we're waiting for the Economic Development Committee to take a look at it on the 20th, I believe. Well, and Oksana, you can help too.
Yes. I forward that draft to the whole committee, and I did include the town board members also. And so Kimberly will be at the meeting and to answer questions and stuff.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of projects and sometimes I get them mixed up, but I think this is the one, and we work with Bergman for multiple things, but I think this is the one that Kimberly mentioned. I think we are finishing this up this year, right? I think that she mentioned that she didn't see why we couldn't get it finished. Also,
I think,
Right.
Sarah, it was this phase. There's another phase that
Oh,
carried over
well,
into 21. So
this draft, or maybe it was Middle Cheshire Road. I'm sorry, you guys, I get them all mixed up.
I get it.
and
but
then
yeah,
the other, just
go
Sarah,
ahead.
also on that and the mixed use overlay. So we've been talking a lot about the form-based code, and I mentioned to the ordinance committee, there's, I think, some other updates we need to have some conversations from a town code perspective relative to the mixed use overlay. So that's certainly not something we're going to be able to finish before the end of 2020. That's something that would definitely carry over into 21.
No, right. And that's what I was going to say is I think, especially if you look at it as a bigger picture, not just the form-based code, this priority, we're not done implementing the Uptown study. And even if the draft is finished, then there will be implementation of it later. So despite COVID, which is good. But I'd say that after the next steering committee meeting with the Economic Development Committee, we'll have a better idea of where we're at with that. You can see I left the dates off the next steps because I just don't know yet. But after that next meeting, I'll be able to update you in the November CIC meeting. So does anyone else have any comments on this one or questions?
We held a public meeting early on in the process. Are we planning to hold like a second one with an actual draft, or is that just going to be like the public hearing?
I asked Kimberly that question. I can't remember what she said. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. It's different. The public meetings are either outside or online now. So I don't know if we use the public hearing as the public meeting, the second one. I know, you know, that one we had earlier this year at the school building was so well attended.
Just know that we're gonna send out, for the public hearing, we'll have to send out notice to each one of those property owners. And, you know, trying to do our diligence beforehand to make sure that we get their input before it goes to that public hearing portion would be good.
Well, why don't we wait and see what the outcome is of the meeting on the 20th?
Yeah, and then we'll have more information to share. Although our CIC meeting is right before it, so I won't be able to share much until
Right.
after, till our November meeting, probably.
Yeah.
So that one will continue, but exactly what we do next year is left to be decided. So the conservation easement group was one of the ones that we established a new project team for. And as we all know, COVID happened right after they had their first meeting, so they didn't get to do much until just this past month. They met again for the first time since, I think it was February or March. And that project team is going to focus on conservation subdivision this fall and probably next spring. If you'll remember, there was the town board hired Labella to work on revising our code as it pertains to conservation subdivisions, trying to improve them, help them do a better job of actually preserving valuable habitat instead of just undeveloped space. The steering committee, which is the conservation easement project team, met, I think it was mid-September, and it was a really good meeting. The next meeting, I can't remember if there's a date yet, but they're going to have some existing conditions and draft information for us to look at. If that happens in October, I'll be able to update everybody on where that stands at our November meeting too. But this project is intended to continue into next year already. So I don't think they'll be, they won't be finished with it this year. So this will just be continuing as is for into next year until they're finished. If in this project team was created for more than just conservation subdivision, of course, they were going to look at conservation easements for the town, PDRs, but also, other types of land cover protection that could potentially be done with conservation easements, forests and whatnot. And so, and teaching people about protecting their land. So their scope is beyond just the subdivision, but that's their focus for now until they're done with that. Oh, and Doug is the chair. Doug, did you have any comments on that or anything to add? Okay. Anyone have a comment or question? Okay. Let's see. Comprehensive plan. Eric, why don't I just let you update us for not too long, but I know we'll spend a lot more time on this in the next few meetings. And while we're talking about where we're at now, maybe we can kind of figure out how we want to tackle this. I know Doug, you had comments about that too, but Eric, you want to quickly tell us where we're at right now with the plan?
Sure. We have a draft. Essentially, I have to finish up the executive summary portion, but certainly none of that will be new. It's all going to be a shortened version of what's in the larger document itself. But we have a draft. We'll be looking for comments and improvements from the project team, from the CIC, from the different department heads and everybody else. And we'll have to hold a public hearing on it prior to it going before the town board, because that's when the state law dictates that when you have a project team do it as opposed to the town board, you have to hold a public hearing before the town board's public hearing. So we'll have to hold a public hearing there, get comments from the public, make any necessary revisions, and then it will be presented to the town board for them to hold a public hearing on it. And hopefully adoption and all the secret documentation, all that stuff. But yeah, I sent it out. I believe I sent it to the CIC. I know I sent it to the product team, but I'll make sure I sent it to the CIC. It's 130 pages, so it'll take you a little while to read. But I think it's a pretty good document. I'm happy with how it's turned out so far.
First of all, thank you for all your hard work. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys realize how hard Eric's worked on this,
Sure.
but lots
Yep.
and lots of hours.
Amen.
I just have a quick, and our whole existence is to implement the comp plan. So this is probably one of the most important projects that we look at, that we consider. And I don't want to rush through it. And I know I'm just one person out of our committee, but I'm not sure how we want to plan the review, but I would like to talk about it together in a meeting rather than just reviewing it on our own, and then providing comment. It is long. I'm not sure the best way to tackle the document in a meeting, but I feel like we should set aside at least a couple meetings, or maybe we need a special meeting, I don't know, to go over, maybe not the existing conditions, but to go over the goals and action steps that are in there. Anyone else have any other ideas or how we might want to tackle this?
Sarah, I would just agree with you. It is extremely important. The planning board and the CIC are both kind of charged with review and implementation of the comprehensive plan. So I think that it is important that we spend some time on this. And really, it's the basis for our laws and everything that we do is the comprehensive plan. So it's extremely important. And I think that we need to be very methodical. I mean, it's a document that gets updated every 10 years. So, I would say let's not rush to adopt it. Let's make sure it's exactly what we want and that everybody has a chance. I know Eric has been holding public meetings and it's been very difficult this year with COVID and even last year. But maybe we can take a few extra steps and let's make sure the CIC members in particular really understand and agree with generally the concept and everything behind it.
So I put the comp plan on our October 20th meeting. And let me know if any of you disagree, but what if we all agree to thoroughly read it before then, especially the existing conditions, and, provide comment either through me or directly to Eric. And then if there's anything major that anyone has a concern with in the existing conditions, then certainly we could talk about it. But maybe we focus in our actual live meetings on the goals and action steps and the implementation side. Does anyone disagree or have any other comments on that idea?
Sounds good.
Okay. And with the year being unpredictable as it has been on the 20th, once we find out, how everybody feels about it, then we can plan how or when we tackle, the goals beyond the 20th at that meeting. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So either Eric or I will make the most updated draft through email. We'll get it to you this week, and then we'll take it from there.
Wait, didn't Eric already send it? I know
If you
I
did, I
saw it.
can't remember. Eric, you sent the one that, maybe you did send them the one that you sent us.
Yeah,
He did send it. It's so,
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
meeting tonight. We're meeting at 5 tonight, right, Eric?
that's right.
Yeah,
Okay, so the CIC members got it too then. Okay,
yes.
all right. Then that's the one you need to take a look at. All right, I might send a reminder
Sure.
at the end of this week anyway. Okay. All right, so you have your marching orders. Read it thoroughly, please. Because we won't have time to read the whole thing at the next meeting. So if we haven't looked at it ahead of time. It'll just make the meeting a lot more difficult. All right. So priority 5 was affordable housing. We did not have a project team for this. We started out the year with Matt Horn coming to talk to us about affordable housing. And then I think we've talked about it a couple more times. I know we've talked about the developer meetings, but that stuff still seems to be kind of up in the air. Doug and I were talking about this the other day. Maybe we need a group dedicated to this. I don't like creating committees just to do it, but maybe we do need a group whose focus is just this. I'm not sure. I feel like we are spinning our wheels a little bit. So I'll take suggestions or comments.
I think it would probably be more productive if we did have some kind of a committee that would be able to ferret through a lot of the information that we've already kind of thought about, how get the developers, which ones, involved, how do we do that? I don't know if we have in our own meetings an opportunity to work that, focused. So probably a task force of some kind would be, optimal.
And if we have a project team, much like we've done in the past, we open it up to the community.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get some folks from the groups you've mentioned before, like Pathstone or some of the developers,
yeah,
to be involved. I mean, I'm not sure how willing they'd be or how hard it would be to get them involved. I really don't know, but.
I think there's a lot of hurdles with this that probably needs a lot of investigation before we could actually accomplish a goal of affordable housing. This is not just about the town. This is about, outside funding and participation and outside participation. It's very complex.
Yeah.
It's also about the city. I think this is an opportunity, if the city agrees, to share a project team, because it affects the whole area. What's in the city affects the town and vice versa, and it's it's really important in these times. But so I think a group of people, including developers, real estate, the city, the town, would be appropriate to look into it, something like that.
Would this be something appropriate for the LDC to spearhead?
Well, the LDC,
Kathy?
yeah, it affects everything kind of that we do, all of us. I think one of the things that makes housing affordable is grants and federal and state funding. So when the LDC is looking at the economic health of the area, obviously having affordable housing is one of the things. It's our vision statement off the top of my head, I can't remember, but it does incorporate those practices. But with the budgets of the state and the federal government being what they are right now, that's going to make it, and building costs are exorbitantly high right now. You can't even get pressure treated lumber. So those are all things I think it would be important to have builders involved as well. Not necessarily on the committee, but ask them what the barriers are right now. This is a different climate than it was a year ago. So DeMarco is going for, which the town board recently supported, grant money for the County Route 10 project, which is an affordable housing component. I'd be curious to see what happens with those funds. So that might be someone to talk to, because right now they're working on it. When I spoke to them a couple of months ago, or whenever, Doug, I don't remember when that was on the agenda, maybe 2 months ago. I think it was 2 meetings ago. They were trying to rethink ways of getting funding money, but from what I hear from the federal and state government, the money's just not there. So that's the only way they tell me. Like DeMarco, when I had a conversation with someone who works for DeMarco. They can't afford to do it unless they get funding.
Right, right.
So that's where we're stuck at for now. So that's not to say we can't work on it, but I think, speaking to someone like DeMarco and saying, without this, what is the most affordable thing you can do? And if they do get the funding, what funding will be down the line? I mean, everyone's looking for their funding right now. Everyone's holding their breath, hoping that they're going to get, the money that's already been promised to them, let alone future funding. So this may be more of a long-term goal. We are fortunate that we have some affordable housing going up, more affordable maybe than, private 2,500 square foot homes, but long-term, the things that you're talking about, how much does it cost to build a tiny home now? Is that even affordable now? I don't know, without grant money. So that would be my suggestion. But yes, the LDC is always working on ways to make the community more attractive to businesses and people to move in, and people that are moving into the area from all over, I can tell you from personal experience, do need that housing. So where's the demand versus what the cost is, which is the problem.
Yeah. Kathy, you mentioned the city too. This is just our own issue in our community, is both of us. So
yeah. And we had spoken, Doug and I and the mayor and John Goodwin have meetings occasionally. I don't know if Doug's still on. I don't have my people maximized here. I can only see a couple of you. But we did talk about, because their real estate is limited. I mean, they're doing what they can with different properties. There are a lot of costs involved with developing some of these older properties like Labelon and Lisk and things like that. But they're very interested in a partnership. And those are things that we do discuss at LDC. We have shorter term projects as well. Also, the projects of the walkability between Main Street and the downtown area, but all of these things play into each other, right? If you can get people to invest in the downtown area, there's more money available, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess we have to focus on, as we've been deciding on LDC, we have to focus on, can't get too bogged down in the weeds and forget our main mission, which is what we've been defining. We can support some of these issues, and we do. For example, if a project comes forward and we, right now we're in the stage of finding funding sources, but everybody's looking for money. But so Matt Horn is working on getting funding sources for us, because right now we just have the money that the town and the city put into it. So any suggestions in that area would be appreciated. But so, for example, the LDC supported the project on Main Street, Center on Main. Is that what it's called? I'm drawing a blank.
Central. Yeah.
Thank you so much in my head right now, which is going very well. We've provided monetary support for that. So those are the smaller projects that we can do, and then the bigger projects that we're working on are exciting as well. I don't have the list in front of me, but one of them is obtaining a grant for connecting the city of Canandaigua with the waterfront area.
Yeah.
So that didn't answer your question per se, but I kind of wanted to let you know what we were doing.
no, thank you. So this kind of takes me back. We want to do this. We're not sure how to do this, but it's bigger than just us. It's bigger than the CIC. It's bigger than just the town. Is it appropriate that we say, well, we want a task force on this, but maybe it needs to involve the city as well? And how would we go about suggesting that?
Well, the city of Canandaigua right now also has their own project team. I'm not sure. I don't think that's the exact word that they use. But what is it called? It's the it's about housing and economic equity, essentially. And so it partially deals with like racial diversity, but it also deals with economic diversity. And so one of their tasks, although I'm not sure their exact path to getting there, will deal with affordable housing and how to incorporate that into the city of Canandaigua as well. It may be an opportunity to partner with them on that.
Doug, you had mentioned to me the other day, maybe we talk to some like John Goodwin and see if he'd like to come and talk to the CIC about housing.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly do something like that at some point in time, but, you know, Kathy explained very well, you know, we've had these conversations. There is an interest. I know that we've had conversations in the past too. I mean, the current average home in the town of Canandaigua, the assessed value is just under 300,000, where it's closer to 100,000 in the city of Canandaigua. So, I mean, huge difference. And so when you talk about affordability, you know, and we've talked to some of these developers that you guys have discussed, like for instance, DeMarco, and they said they can't build a house for that. So, you know, it takes the repurposing, the imagine, you know, creativity, imagine new options, and the city might be a good option for that, as we've discussed before. But, you know, I think the LDC can be a vehicle for that. But as Kathy was saying, you know, the LDC is still getting its feet under it and still getting up and trying to figure out how it's going to move forward and function. So baby steps.
So where does that leave us for our goals for next year? Do we keep it on, or do we support someone else's efforts, or do we start our own project team and then hope that we can get other people to jump in with us?
I would suggest starting
I
off
think-
a project team. It's one of the few items from the comp plan in 2011 that I don't think a real focus has been made on it. And it should be done, especially, like I've said this before, somewhere around 28% of town of Canandaigua residents are cost burdened by housing, meaning they pay over 30% of their income. It's a real issue that ought to be addressed in some fashion.
Even though we don't know what to do right in this minute, it should remain as you know, one of our priorities. We'll work our way through it, I'm sure. And so we don't want to abandon it, but we need to keep it in front of us so that we can take opportunity whenever it may come up.
Yeah, I think having a committee that's focused on that, that can inform the rest of us, that's, you know, constantly reaching out and saying, because like I said, it changes so much. This is the current situation. You know, this is what the builders need to make it happen, or it can't happen right now. Or this is the situation with, you know, money coming in from federal and state grants. Because it changes so much to have like a specific, to say right now, you know, one specific steps to take could change. But if there's a committee that's focused on that, that we can refer back to and say, you know, they can say, you know, they'll have maybe a realtor, you know, Andy Griffith is a good source of information on real estate situations, excuse me, which is why in the LDC, it's a good combination of people. But, and then that would be something that the LDC could tap into as well and say, you know, what's the current climate or whatever.
I agree with both Joyce and Kathy that, but I think it should remain on our agenda, but perhaps change the focus to identifying and creating a team, a mixed team who can address the issue more fully. So I think we still need to have it there because ultimately it is a part of our responsibility, but just change how, identify what we're going to do to get to the next step. And that would be to create a team. So I don't know, does that work?
Well, that's the kind of feedback I'm looking for. So,
and just like things like I can tell you from personal experience with people moving from other places that have money to spend, it's driving up the price of homes. So, you know, people that I know from Westchester and New Jersey and Brooklyn, you know, they want to get out and their homes are selling for close to $2 million and people are lining up to buy homes in New Jersey. My friend of mine went to an open house and it was down the block and it went for like $500,000 over asking price by the time they couldn't even get in. So that's driving up our prices. It's driving up building costs. So this is a bubble, I think, but how long it's going to last? Probably, once COVID calms down and people stop running away from where they are, that'll change. But I agree, we have to stay educated in the meantime.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Sarah. Okay, so in the next, under gateway signs, you have possible recanvas for membership. So maybe you should find out what other committees need members, and because I know the signage will, and so this could be the affordable housing would be one of the new committees that we do for next year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, thank you everyone for the feedback. But yes, if we agree that maybe one of our main goals for housing is to find people who can help us figure out how to make that happen, then yeah, I mean, I do it because it works, but yeah, we will ask for people to join in early next year. Send out emails, send out in the newsletter, letting people know we want to work on this, just like we have, in the other years.
Sure.
The people from Cadstone, I just
Yeah.
want to say this. So I was in their Ontario County Housing Consortium meeting 2 weeks ago now. They are concerned, especially as foreclosures and evictions start to pick up, that it's going to become more of an issue. They're definitely interested in, I guess, sharing with the town what their experience is, how they think the town can be of assistance. I'm not sure if they're willing to be on the project team. I'd imagine that maybe some of them may be, but those guys at that meeting are definitely willing to be a resource for the town in this goal.
That's good. I mean,
That is good.
I know we talked about having them come talk at CIC, which still might be a good idea, but it sounds like if we do create this team, they should come and talk to them too, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hey, everybody, I just wanted to thank you all for seriously the time and everything. I've got to jump off. Kathy just jumped off. We're actually headed to Jean's mother passed away. Our town clerk, Jean's mother passed away. So we're headed to that funeral. So that's why Kathy had to leave, and I got to sign off here too. So, but thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we're almost done with our goals list at this point anyway. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, fun
Did
song.
Did everyone know that Kevin Mulvaney's dad passed away?
Wow.
Sometime, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oksana, I know you got us started on it already, but so I think I have a good idea of what we'll start with for housing. Start with people, I guess. Start with a group for next year. And
Yeah.
signage, I know Oksana, you already mentioned it. I think Doug already jumped off, but I think in the preliminary 2021 budget, the money for, or at least some money for the gateway signage is back in. So I do think we should have that project team again, but like Oksana said, we need to get some members, or just, reach out to the members who agreed to last year, and then also try and get some new members to try and tackle it next year. Same goal, same idea, just a new year. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No.
Or I guess I should just remind everybody, this is the one where we want to put signage up at all the major entry points to the town to let people know that they've entered the town, where they are, just like all of our other neighboring communities do, and we don't really, so. All right, that's it for our own goals that we had for this year. Like I said earlier, our other priorities were to support the other existing committees where we could. The Parks Committee, the Ag Committee, the Economic Development Committee, and the ECB. I think that's kind of goes without saying. We continue to see what they're up to and help or provide comment, feedback, wherever. The one thing we didn't really touch on, and I was talking with Kimberly from Bergman yesterday through email about the Middle Cheshire Road project. That's the other one we're working on with Bergman. They are also moving right along with that one. They did have a public meeting. It was kind of a drop-in meeting outside, held at the church on Middle Cheshire Road. You know, there was a handful of people that showed up, answered questions, put stickers on the boards. So that group, the steering committee, I think is going to meet hopefully later in October. And so I can bring back what's happened since then to the CIC in early November. They do anticipate being completed before the end of the year. And I do think that the CIC should have some chance to provide feedback. So I'll probably be doing that through email. But again, the steering committee is not meeting until late October, so I won't have anything for you guys until after that. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Sarah, not on that, but looking through the list, I know we talked about a subcommittee having to do with tree preservation at one point. It was, I guess, sort of tied in with, it wasn't tied in, with created at the same time the Gateway and the Conservation Subdivision group was created. What happened to that initiative?
Thank you. I think I forgot to put them on the list. They would fit in with the natural resource protection priority number 1. I got kind of focused on NRI and I think I forgot to put them in there. So yeah, that group still exists. They had a big long gap when COVID happened. They didn't meet until September. And that group has, I think there's like 3 arborists on the group. So we've been asking them for help and advice with the town's trees at our parks and cemeteries. They have, one of the arborists has twice now gone out and taken a look at some parks trees and some cemetery trees and provided some advice and feedback that we shared with parks. And, you know, they've been really helpful. They've done it all for free, just as a favor. And it's kind of funny. I didn't really anticipate that that's what they would be doing, but they are, and it's working. You know, they also, you know, look at bigger picture stuff if we ask it. Originally, we created the group to work on the grant that DEC offers for urban forestry. And they were going to, you know, provide feedback on that, serve as a project team, but that grant was delayed majorly. It was supposed to come out in May. It did just come out a week ago. We did not get it. So I think the move now is kind of, you know, we didn't get the money. We can always try again, but in the meantime, you know, it may be we look at individual parks, and instead of focusing on, you know, the trees as a whole, we focus on problem trees, dangerous trees, or trees that are, you know, need treatment. And so far on a small scale, it's been working pretty well. They seem eager to help. They're a pretty educated group, so that's nice. You know, we said, hey, there's a big tree here at this park. We're worried it might fall over. Take a look. Can you tell us what to do? So stuff like that. So yeah,
Good.
they're still meeting. I don't anticipate them to stop meeting. They're, you know, they're interested and they're helpful, and it's been good. And
Could you fold in an aspect of the, I'm sorry. Whoever was talking, go ahead.
No, I think you go ahead. I didn't hear anyone
Oh,
else.
I heard some background noise. Yeah, could they fold in possibly looking at invasive species? If you know, it's from a tree aspect, maybe more than just a shrub. And I know it's something that's come up with planning boards. We've sort of taken the initiative if we know of invasive species on a property that's being has an application in, we try to convince the applicant, the owner, to abate the problem. And in most cases, they've been mostly cooperative. So I was just thinking if they're so energized to look at trees, they can also maybe look at invasive species.
Well,
Yeah.
the ECB looks at invasive species also, and we remark on, say, ash trees and things like that in when we know of those trees on a property. In our advisory reports, I'm thinking of one that we just wrote to the planning board regarding ash trees and, of course, a big cottonwood that has the eagle nest in it. So we do a lot of work with the invasive species. We have a invasive species display case that's on now. So we try to be on top of anything. We have all kinds of information regarding invasive species, webinars, articles, and whatever on our webpage. I think the planning board might benefit from some of the information we have there regarding invasive species. So, and we also have two of our members on the tree board. And those two members are Gary and Edith. So if you feel like maybe the ECB should be doing something more in an invasive species area, we'd be more than happy to take those comments and incorporate it in some of our educational materials.
You're right, Joyce. It's in your reports is usually where the issue comes up, and that's all well and good, and it's very good. And I know Ryan's very much involved with it also, which is good. So yeah, let's continue as we're going right now and not put a further burden on the tree group.
I know the tree group is working with, gypsy moth, those big infestations that are in the town trees, but also we just had that big webinar that spoke to not only to town parks and everything, but individual property owners. So that's a big deal that's going to be coming up in the spring, is some kind of aerial spraying of the biologics regarding the gypsy moth. So we're trying to keep on top of it. And if we haven't done a good enough job to let us know, and we'll try to, go back over our steps and do something different.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think the ECB does a really good job of outreach. You can't always guarantee who's going to look at it, which is unfortunate, but there's always so much good information out there. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, if you've ever visited the ECB page or have recently, but there's so many resources on there. You could read for days.
Yeah.
There's good stuff on there. And yeah, Chuck, the tree group at their, I guess, well, it would have been the September meeting. It's the only one they've had since March. They did talk about gypsy moths, because that seems to be the invasive species of the moment when we're talking about trees around here anyway. We did kind of lean on DEC, because when we were trying to figure out what can we do, what should we do, we talked with the Watershed Association and DEC and I can't remember who I reached out to. Oh, Prism, everybody, and DEC ended up planning the webinar, and so we all kind of agreed mutually to just push that out as much as we could. And I did talk to the tree team about it, and the meeting we had, Dan Marion Jr. was the only arborist who actually showed up to that meeting, and he mentioned, the same things we heard in the webinar, that there are steps you can take. It really depends on and sometimes it's kind of hard to to predict what next year's going to be like, because if we get no help from nature, as in help from the fungus or the I can't remember that other disease that affects them, if we get no help from that, we could have a year just as bad next year. But if we have a wet spring, people may not need to spray. It was hard. He said it's hard to decide what to do. But these populations rise and fall in cycles. So even if we do have a bad year next year, it doesn't mean every year after that's going to be bad. It's what he was saying. He said there's kind of a cycle. They've been here so long now. It's kind of predictable, but yeah, weather definitely seems to affect it. But back to the group themselves and their purpose, I do think, you know, they'll continue to meet, whether it's monthly or just a little bit less than monthly. I think because we didn't get the grant that would help us do an inventory on town-owned property trees, they'll, I think, start to try and tackle that to some extent themselves. Like I said, just focusing on hazardous trees in parks and cemeteries and on town hall campus. And, you know, in future years, if we're able to try and get that grant again, then we could do, it would be more broad and they would serve as a steering committee for that. So that group will continue next year too.
Thank you for the discussion.
Thanks for bringing it up. I can't believe I forgot it. All right. So I know we kind of talked vaguely. I feel like we were all over the place, but it's after 10 and in the effort of time, and my youngest has run behind me about 6 times now, so I know she needs my help. I probably need to get off of here. But we didn't get as far as I wanted to, but I know where we stand now. I almost am wondering if we have enough for next year with the list we didn't finish this year. You know, maybe that is enough for us to, you know, continue the ones that aren't finished.
I'm
because
sure we'll add to it anyways, you know.
Yeah, well, and that's a lot of goals, you know. There might be a reason why we didn't finish most of them. Not just COVID, but there's a lot going on. We only have so much time.
Complexity.
And
I have
money.
just one little housekeeping thing. I noticed that Bill Lee was not on the mentioned on the agenda as a committee member. Is he no longer with us, or was that just a?
No, he did reach out. He said that he would like to remove himself from the CIC, at least for now. He said thank you. He enjoyed it, but he was also on the comp plan team. And he enjoyed being on that one. And and he said he may reach out in the future, but for now, he's going to back off for a while.
Okay, and the other was Ray Henry. Is he, I know he's retired, but is he still want to be on the CIC, or?
He gets the emails.
Oh, I know. He's
Not his town email address anymore. It's a personal email, but I don't know. He hasn't mentioned whether or not he wants to stay on it.
I was just Bill's name not being on there. I hadn't heard anyway whether he was still with us or not. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Sarah,
Yeah.
I have a question. Regarding Ray Henry, did the town do anything for him?
We did
Like special?
we did cupcakes and stuff at town hall. It was in the middle of COVID when he decided to move up his retirement to July. It was originally going to be the end of this year, but he said he was ready.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, obviously we couldn't really.
Okay.
What is the disposition for a new historian? Is the town looking for one, or are we just?
I believe that is a supervisor appointment, and I
Okay.
don't know where we're at with it, but no, we don't have
Okay.
anybody yet. But right now, what we've kind of decided on is if people call the town with a question about history, we can forward it to the history team, which is still meeting and they're still active. So,
Great.
Okay. Sarah,
yeah.
I don't know if I should mention this or just talk to Doug about it. The events committee. I have no idea what we can do for next year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that probably is a
I
Doug
mean,
conversation.
okay, all right.
But yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, Sam is running our meeting and she's got to go, so we need to wrap it up. Sam,
Okay.
I mean, everybody, I think at town hall is getting ready to leave. But yeah, Oksana, why don't we touch base with Doug on that, or help me remember to talk to him about it.
Oh, he was going to call me either Wednesday or Thursday, so I'll make a list of questions for him.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry
Okay.
to cut this short, you guys, but I have to skedaddle. But thank you for enduring
Yeah.
the conversations and We'll meet on the 20th and we'll talk about the comp plan. And interspersed with more comp plan meetings, we'll have some, at least probably one more meeting about planning for next year. But as we have been for the last, 8 months now, we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants for a little bit.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
So
thank you.
And
Thank you.
we'll talk to you
Thanks.
next time, and I'll be in touch through email before then.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye
yeah,
all.
bye.
Bye.